depending on what the team shows up.
I think they'll split the Eagles. That'll make everybody all.
No, you could be small. Well, that's looking pretty good until this past week.
I was really shocked. We were going outside all day Sunday, so I didn't watch any of the games. And I started checking scores later in the day. I was like, holy smokes.
I didn't either. I didn't. Niners, Eagles. Maybe they're open. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
He's never been that strong.
Steve, you feel better? Yeah. I'll tell you what, I had a month ago.
Where's your mask?
Like it was 6 or 7 days later, like it turned into
Really?
Oh, yeah. And I had another thing. So what? You know, the previous 2 of the 4 games. That's the most I've called in a while. Another one. So I'm like better than I was. Good. I feel fine. I just have some cough. Mm-hmm.
You guys missed some pretty good meal the other Tuesday. Oh, man.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to recognize a few visitors. We have some students with us from, is it Mr. Hammer's government class? If you wouldn't mind, please stand up and introduce yourself. You don't need to give us a speech or anything like that.
Lizzie Wolpe.
Jonathan Custer.
Laura Barber.
McKenna Douglas.
Julie Barber.
Scarlett Sorley.
Adam Cochran.
Delaney Apple.
Thank you so much for coming. We hope that you find this educational and enlightening. Next on the agenda is the financial report from Mrs. Baker.
Okay, fund balances. We have a decrease of 43.66% over last year's net fund balance of $15,437,106.81. Operating funds, a decrease of 39.21% over last year's net total, which was $14,097,193.06. For revenue in the education fund, local revenue, $293,000, $735.38. State, $714,992.97. For federal funds, $95,819.96. Those expenses over $5,000 are in your packet. Recommendation would be to reimburse the impressed account in the amount of $7,656.15 and the payment of bills of $1,364,521.70.
We would assume you probably have some questions based on that report. Would I agree? There's quite a deficit there. It shows. Something else telling the rest of the story.
Yeah, so we had not received any of our revenue at this point. We now have received 12 million in revenue, so that's why we're showing such a large deficit over last year.
property taxes.
Local funds, right?
Well,
Yep. Okay.
tax bills went out late, so that ultimately we received those funds. Last year, we received them in September. This year, we received them in October. We still have to operate regardless when they come in.
So that report will be quite different next month.
That's correct.
Yes. Are there any other questions regarding the financial report? Before we go further, before we approve the financial report, I need to backtrack and take roll, please.
Bishop,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Jane, yes, Chad.
Yes.
Okay, now that the roll call is official, I am looking for a motion and a second to approve the financial report to reimburse the IMPOST account in the amount of $7,656.15 and the payment of bills in the amount of $1,364,521.70.
Is it,
Is it
is it
62
362 or 364?
It's 62 or 64. Okay, the report here says 64,
It's 64, I'm sorry.
and
You're on this-
the agenda says 62.
Yep, so the financial report is correct.
The financial report is correct, so the amount of payment of bills is $1,364,521.70. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Steve,
Second.
second by Andrew, roll call.
Steve,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Jane, yes, Chad.
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. You have minutes from the last meeting, the cafeteria report, the student teacher report, and just to recap that, we have 3 short-term observations, 2 at the junior high, 1 at the high school. The junior high, 1 is for fall and the other is for spring. And then we have an extended field experience or student teaching for the PE department at both Central and at the high school, and that is for the spring of 2024. Fundraisers, the high school choir is doing a sponsor a student, where patrons sponsor a student, where donations can be set on a one-time only or annual basis, and that is to raise funds for the program and raise money for a potential trip to Nashville in 2025. And that fundraiser will go from October 25th to November 8th. The EHS Palm Squad is doing a dance instruction and a performance for the boys' home basketball game. The clinic will be 2 days, and that is to raise funds to offset costs for supplies and apparel. That will be December 10th and December 14th. And Southside will have their annual American Heart Association Jump-a-thon, and that is to promote community service by allowing students to participate in fundraising activity that benefits others, and that will be held from January 29th to February 23rd, 2024. Field trips, there are none. Is there anything I'm missing from the consent agenda? Are there minutes from, there's also minutes from, not only from the last board meeting, but from committee meetings. There's the HR committee meeting on 10/11, a curriculum meeting on 10/18, and a facilities and transportation meeting on 10/18 as well.
Did we ever look up, see how many total student teachers we have this year? We talked about that last
We
week.
did not, I forgot, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm just curious more than anything, just how many we have this year versus last year, just because we talked about there's a way to attract more and want to
Right.
observe here.
Get that once meeting's over.
I should be getting a motion and second to approve the consent agenda, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions regarding the consent agenda? I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Motion by Scott,
Second.
second by Chad, roll call.
Scott,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Jane, yes, Chad,
Yes.
Desha,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is a correspondence. We received a thank you note from the Jurgens and Scott family. Thank you for the incredible support in memory of our mom, Judy Jurgens. She drove the Angel Bus number 14 for over 18 years. Mom loved those children. The ice and snow were not her favorite, but the kids and their families were. We appreciate the beautiful plant in remembrance of Mom, Mark Jurgens and Julie Scott families. And then a thank you from Beecher City Unit 20. Thank you for your support of our students, teachers, and staff during this difficult time. We are fortunate to be part of such a great community, Beecher City Unit 20. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
We're going to yield the floor to some folks from Lakeland. We've got Barney Moore and Chris Stoll here to talk to us a little bit about our partnership that we had in place this past summer, and we're looking forward to in the future. So I'll give the floor to you.
Do you have the video first?
Do it however you want to. One second.
Well, Teams with Schools, in my opinion, it was an incredible pilot program this past summer with a joint collaborative effort between Lakeland College and Unit 40 School District. Partnership with Lakeland College is crucial. So obviously, we couldn't have done this ourselves from the standpoint of being able to expose our kids to many of the things such as the 3D printing, the laser playing, laser cutting, shooting off rockets and doing things that were really, really neat to watch these kids to be able to protect them. And so I think just the sheer fact that we were able to join together as a group, collective group between the Council of Lakeland for staffing, for expertise, for eye property, new equipment, all jointly helped us be able to provide a great program. The idea behind Teams with Schools was to get United Kids exposure to some higher level, higher order thinking and some skills to get actual physical tools in their hands to give them an idea or hopefully encourage them to explore some of these things on their own, either outside of school or when they get to high school and hopefully beyond at Lakeland. I think there's a lot. I think they realize that, there's more to school, there's more to learning than just, math, English, science, those types of things, that you can get an education and still do things with your hands outside of a school building and learn and gain knowledge that can be beneficial in life. It was great, not only seeing the students, but working together with the teachers from Lakeland, coming down, building rapport with them, see what works at their level, seeing what works at the junior high, and kind of bringing all the levels together so we can build a final project. So it went from not knowing anything about computer-aided software, welding applications, to being able to weld pipe together, being able to design a rocket that they would launch off at the end of the week. So huge success.
For me, it really kind of means, okay, you guys get a chance to do something that they're starting out and keep expectations, I'm not going to say low, but let expectations be kind of experimental. Let the kids learn at their own pace and see where they're at, because in the day, this can be something that they've never done before, and now they're hungry for it to do it later. Or something that they've never done before, they tried it and they're like, nope, this isn't my thing. But that's okay. It's part of learning. You're going to go through, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to falter, but overcoming and pursuing different things and growing from there is really important.
For me personally, as a high school instructor, an opportunity to work with the junior high kids, that was that was the reason I chose to participate, is having the opportunity to make a connection with junior high kids before they get to the high school. And so then when I see them start coming through my classes and coming to my building, I already know them. I have that relationship from that experience we shared with the Tools for Teens Week. And, I have something I can talk about with them. So that's really helpful for me as a high school instructor.
I just think he enjoyed the program. He just liked coming each day. I think he learned a lot. I think it gave him kind of a routine in the summer. He knew he was gonna get up and go, and it's 30 hours. It's the right amount of time. It's not like a full day with school. It's 30 hours, and he just enjoyed the routine part of it. And then just each week was a little bit different. And that was also something he really liked. He loved the hands-on stuff. He liked the pipe bending one. He loved the wind turbine. That was probably his favorite. And he liked all of the stuff that had to do with electricity and science, those types of things. He really enjoyed that and talked a lot about it. A great opportunity for the kids here to be able to have, like when college instructors come and teach junior high kids, and they're teaching similar things to what they're teaching their, college students, and that's just a huge opportunity for a junior high 13 to 14-year-old.
So at the beginning, it was kind of where they sit and they listen to the teachers, and they come home and they said, I asked them how it was, and they said, well, the teacher talked a lot, and it seemed like at the end of the camp, once they got to use their hands and actually get more into whatever the topic was, they were very excited to tell what they learned. I have one son now that's interested in future mathematical classes, taking those, and engineering, and becoming an engineer because of the certain classes that they took.
Well, I think it makes them realize that there are options out there. There are other things that they can do, and there are opportunities out there within the walls or within the district or even after high school about, I don't necessarily have to go into a 4-year program or get a master's degree or doctorate degree. I can go do cool things with my hands and still make and be successful and make a career of it. I appreciate Lakeland. I appreciate our own staff. I appreciate our parents and our kiddos being part of this program, and look forward to what the future has for us as we seek to move in better ways. We can provide these opportunities for our kids.
Yes. I think Mr. Johnson summed it up at the end of the video that you just saw. We really appreciate the school district letting us come here this summer and being able to offer this opportunity. When we had this meeting back in February, I think it was kind of a pipe dream of what can we do and how can we have a summer program in Effingham that we can pilot in other areas in summer of 2024 and beyond. So this was just a really great opportunity, and it was great to work with Mr. Johnson and his staff because they were excellent. So not only did the junior high kids get to meet their high school instructors, but they also got to meet some of the college instructors that they could have someday. So it's been a really great opportunity.
Thank you so much for having us here and for being able to offer these programs at the junior high. When we first met, we were kind of conceptually talking about who can we help and who can we target, and we all realized that the junior high kids are the ones that get left behind because they're too old for daycare and they don't have all of the high school stuff going on. So we met with our technology department, and our faculty agreed to do a week in Effingham. We paid for our materials and our faculty costs, the t-shirts, and then each student got a certificate at the end of the week that they completed, and then Effingham covered the snacks and drinks, and their faculty and staff who were on site. I have to say, we wouldn't have been able to do it. Our faculty is used to college students, so there's built-in there between junior high and college students. And it was interesting that first week we had a full class of students, and then the next week didn't have as many students registered, but suddenly it was full. And the only class that we had that was not full was the pipe bending class. which was the one I was the most nervous about because we were giving junior hires fire. And I live with one, so I was a little nervous, I'm not gonna lie. That class ended up being a huge success. All of the students were excited every week that we came. We learned that 12 hours of virtual and augmented reality is not a great thing, so we will not be doing that camp next year. Although we will probably be bringing in the headsets to supplement. But as Chris said, we are planning on expanding this program next year to programs outside of technology. So we're talking about bringing in other areas of the college to be able to offer career exploration, for the junior high students, and also looking at expanding it outside of just the Effingham area. But we would never have been able to do this program without the cooperation that we had here from your staff and administration. So thank you so much for being able to do that. Every week coming in on Thursdays and doing those videos of the kids and emailing them out to parents, we had such a great response from that, and seeing the big smiles on their faces when they realized, hey, wait a minute, this is why I have to do that math I hate. In my class, I suddenly managed to connect that to the wind turbine that I just built. And it was really amazing to see the kids grow and kind of get it as they went through the program. I did pull up some numbers, which I printed and forgot to grab off the printer before I left here. But we did serve, I believe, 48 different students throughout the 7 weeks of programs that we offered here on site. And we were able to do this program and charge $20 a head for the student, which was great because it made it affordable for everyone. We did have a few students who weren't able to pay in the school district, work with us to be able to enroll those students so that everybody got a chance to be part of this. And I just appreciate being able to do this at Effingham. It kind of reinvigorates you to keep going and building programs when you get to see the results of something like this.
And we appreciate Lakeland. Again, I can't say enough about them and our own staff. I know Mr. Roberts is sitting back there and wasn't sure he was coming, so I'm glad he is. He's not in the video, but he got drafted in to go to that meeting last when we were brainstorming and putting some of this stuff together. So really was a neat opportunity for our kiddos. Weren't very many places in the community that I went that somebody had somebody typed to that last summer that didn't say something positive to me. And, that makes you feel pretty good about what you're trying to provide for kiddos. And again, I think the main goal for the whole program was to expose them to the vocational trade and opportunities that really are out there that they maybe don't know about already.
What areas are under consideration for expansion in summer 2024?
Well, pretty much every area of the college. We definitely would like to do something with allied health so that careers in healthcare can be covered. We talked about expanding some of what we're doing with technology and then bringing in some of the other areas where we know that there's going to be a continued need for employment in the future, like early childhood education, potentially some of the social sciences.
Still junior high level.
Yes, yeah. As a matter of fact, yes, we're really looking to target that 5th through 8th grade career exploration piece with this, so.
We actually did some this afternoon, and we also talked about agriculture and business, yes. So 2 areas that we know there are jobs in our own community. The big thing is letting students see what really goes on. Like, what are the careers in their own community that they don't know about? So I think a lot of it is just exposure to the students so that they understand what the opportunities are to them. I hate to see our young talent moving away. So let's expose them, at least show them what we have so that they have a desire and a need to stay here and they see what the opportunities are here.
We're also hoping next year to work with some business partners in our area to allow students to potentially be able to come in and do tours at facilities and learn about the different types of jobs that are available. So even though it may be a manufacturing facility, you could still go there and be an accountant or work in HR and that type of thing so that students have a well-rounded view of what's coming and what's available in their areas.
I think students that age have no concept of how education goes to what they're going to do. You have to think about it yet. It is, I have to do this, and this. I'll do my block, I'll get this done. And this program opens a lot of their eyes.
Yes, absolutely.
We've had a lot of discussions in our curriculum meetings about exposing kids younger to careers. I mean, it's still great for high school juniors to go out and job shadow, but we really need to target the younger generation so that they see the value in their education. So thank you very much.
We appreciate all that the administration did, so I can't speak enough about how wonderful your administration was to work with.
We couldn't have done this program without the partnership that we had here, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the foundation report. It does talk about teaching grant presentations or that were presented at the last meeting on October 10th. I don't know if you want to go.
Tomorrow, the prize patrol is going to be out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prize patrol.
Yes,
Okay.
it's kind of exciting. So teacher, the grants that are being awarded by the foundation and prize patrol surprises them, like,
Gotcha.
oh gosh, what Publishers Clearinghouse, yeah. So that's what's going on tomorrow. And Breakfast with Santa is December 2nd.
We're on the calendar.
And later in the meeting, we will be approving the appointment of 2 foundation directors as well.
Board requests, we had in this past month. Enrollment is enclosed. Total enrollment right now is 2303. I will tell you it's 2318 as of today, that this report pulls off of, trying to stay consistent off of the end of September. So 14 more than, the 2303 is 14 more than last month, but it's down 65 from this time last year. So that part's not good. Audit information will be provided to us at the November 20th board meeting. That's historically what's happened in this district, so that's nothing uncommon there. Jill, I don't know if you want to help me with this next one, or you want me to do it, or how, let me do it.
Go ahead.
Okay, at this time, I would like to provide Jane Willenberg with a IASB Distinguished Board Leader certificate. I'll pass that down to her.
Well, thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, has to do with how many years you've served and the activities that you attend.
And the online things.
Okay, online participation in different activities there. So I think she deserves a round of applause. Or stand there, just the two of us.
You two look marvelous. Just a second here. Best picture I've taken today.
Because Jane's in it. Thank you, Jane, for all that you do.
So the IASB tracks us in a point system. So if you attend, like we had the district meeting last week, when you attend that, you get points for that. If you go to the state conference, you get points for that. If you take an online course, you get points for that. So Jane does participate quite a bit in the IASB activities. Thank you.
Before we go on to the next one, you asked about student teachers. Here's the results of the student teachers. We do have one that is being shared between what sounds like ELC and Southside. So there's one. We have two actually that will be at the junior high, so there's 3. High school has 1 in the fall and 1 in the spring, so that's 4 or 5. So roughly 5 right now. This is not counting people that come in and do observations for a short period of time and things like that. So here's what I will say is I do believe we are active in trying to get more folks on property. I'll also throw in that I learned a little bit more today, learn a little bit every day. I'm a lifelong learner. It's very fortunate that right now we are doing everything we can to find talent that is not certified, that works in our district, such as our non-certified staff, and find ways if they have an interest in being certified to be teachers or fill some positions in this district. And we have a lot of that going on right now. Don't have the exact numbers, but I know we're heavily involved, especially at the daycare. And what's fortunate about that is we're finding different programs that are either free or next to free. So those folks that are working in those positions in our district don't have to quit school, don't have to quit working for us on meeting, and they can still make some money, and it's not costing them much, if any. So really, really good situation there for us. I think that'll bode very well. It may take us a little while, 2-3 years, but I think we're proactive on that line in every building with our administrators, so I commend them for that.
That's it.
Next on the agenda is new business, and the first item is a presentation from BLDD Architects and the Clio Facility Research presentation. With us, we have Damian Schlitt and Kayla Beck.
I'm not gonna talk like right into it, and I just like sit there and speak.
I'm pretty sure if you stand wherever you want to, there's so many microphones right now.
I hope so, but I just wanna make sure. So,
Move around if you need to.
that's, I'm gonna say that on second point.
Okay.
Alright, so real quick, I think I've met everybody, Steve and I got to meet. My name's Damian Schlitt, BLD Architects.
Nice to meet
I'm one of the principals at the firm and co-director of our K-12 design group. So here to present to you our Clio study, as Kayla Beck, who did the majority of the work, put this together tonight. So going through tonight, there's really kind of 3 areas that we're going to walk through, just make sure we have some good background of understanding of where the scenarios came from, kind of what some of the criteria were we were looking with. Talking about the scenarios, so we do have 4 of those. We've got printed copies that we'll hand out when you get to that piece. And then we also have the Clio results, so kind of the outcomes of that. We did walk through this with the building committee the other day, and we had some great kind of interaction and feedback on that. So we're going to be focusing on this for the whole group tonight. So where we are, so there's 3 areas that I just want to make sure that everybody, especially those in attendance that may not know, current facilities, just where current grades are housed at, where those facilities are. Also the current facilities that are serving programs that are outside of pre-K through 12. So we've got our alt-ed, we've got daycare as well. The physical needs assessment, which was the first piece of work that we did, which was walking the buildings and understanding, even if we do nothing relative to realignments or grades or opening buildings, closing buildings, the costs are going to be improved over the next 10 years, regardless of that action. And the next piece is a functional performance. So while we might understand the condition buildings are in, we also equally, or in some people's opinion, maybe more so important, how well are we functioning as a school? So it might be in great shape, but if it's not providing for our students today moving forward, might need to have some consideration for that. So real quick, and I'm sure you can all read all of this text up there, I apologize. But across to the top there, we've got our high school, we've got the junior high serving our 6th through 8th graders. Central, which is our 3rd through 5th, but also houses a portion of our 2nd graders, which we're all familiar with. South side is the second one down on the left there. That one housing 1st and the remainder of the 2nd grade students. We then have the Early Learning Center for our kindergarten, and then the east side with the pre-K program. The bottom 2 facilities there, we've got Little Hearts for the daycare and West Side for the alt-ed. We've included those here because when we first were brought in, the conversation was, all right, what are we going to do pre-K 5? Well, as we started having the conversations, it was like, well, we've got a daycare center over here, we've got an alt-ed program, our high school's got these needs. So what we do is that we got to look kind of holistically at all the buildings. We need to understand where every student's going to end up at the end of this. So as you'll see in these different scenarios, there's an understanding of, will alt-ed remain in West Side? Does it get moved into another facility? Same with the daycare program, those types of things. One thing to consider is that as we look through these, though, we have still focused really on our pre-K through 8 relative to facilities. We understand where everybody's going to go, and there's always something we can do in the high schools, going through on it, alt-ed programs, those type of things. But we thought we had a more holistic understanding of where we're going to be, and it allows us also to consider maybe keeping buildings online in a different capacity, even if they come offline for pre-K through 12 programming. So the first piece of information that we really walked through was the physical needs. So as you can see here on the left side, we've got all those physical needs. It totals just under $19 million across all the buildings over these next 10 years. That includes everything from HVAC improvements that are very limited,
electricity, power loads that are in some buildings, site work related to parking lots and those types of things. All these types of physical things that even if we don't change anything, are gonna, go out of date or fall out of service within this next 10-year window. That chart on the left really breaks it down by urgency. So you'll see A, there's 0%, there are no immediate, what we refer to as health and life safety issues. There aren't any just really urgent things we need to take care of. Majority of the work is in that 2 to 5 or 5 to 10 range, so B and C items. That means that, in the next couple of years, if they're not starting to take care of, they're gonna start to cause additional problems. We've also included, in here, we pulled out the site because at 2 of the buildings in particular, there's quite a bit of parking lot and paving type work, and we didn't want that to make the building look, more in disrepair than it really is. So we pulled that out just for everybody's understanding. We've also included in here security film. I know there's been some understanding of conversations about that around the district, so we included that within that total fund there. At the top right, you'll see by building. So of course, the high school is the biggest building, has the most parking lots, all that is going to have the most cost, about $9.4 million. The junior high and central are just behind that, about 4.5 and about 3.2 million. And then the smaller elementaries trickling down behind that. That bottom right, we always like to show the dollars per square feet because that kind of brings it back into some context of the size of the building and kind of the real urgency of the need. And what you'll see here is that you'll see it as the highest need per square foot, really just because of some of the systems that are in place in that building, and it just has the most physical need. It's a very small footprint. But the remainder of the buildings, really kind of across the board, we would consider in very good shape physically. Most of the time when we're going through a study of some really old facilities, we'll see those dollars, those are down anywhere from $25 to $40 is what those say. We'll see dollars at $170, $180, $200 even square foot of need for buildings. So generally speaking, the buildings are in really good shape to start from, which, as we've been talking with the group through the study, is a good starting point. You're not like being forced into staying with the building or out. You get to focus on kind of functionally how they're going to work. So the next piece, and you're not supposed to be able to read this part, the next piece that we did was a functional assessment. So we set up the graders and graded the buildings relative to one another, how they're not necessarily how they're getting by, but how they're functioning related to future hopes and aspirations for that campus. We had to grade them together in the same room so that they could give a little bit of feedback, so that nobody was extra hard on their building, nobody was a little too easy on their building, and it gave us a good starting point from which to work. What this does is this gives us an outline, of all of our buildings as a baseline. So this is the starting score, how they're performing today, and all of the scenarios you'll see today where we showed improvements or grade realignments, we actually improved upon those with, if we're adding additional common space and we didn't have enough in this, it would improve that scoring. If you look across these on the right side, the bracketing at the top, excellent, 90 and above is really, it is capable of supporting today's programs easily and has flexibility to provide programs into the foreseeable future. So those are the buildings, a new building will often score 95, 97.5 up in that criteria. The next is satisfactory, that's that blue zone. That's the 70 to 90. That means that it's probably holding up pretty well with most of today's programs. Might have some issues with particular programs going in the future. So it could use a little bit of enhancements or refinements to that. The next borderline, which we've got just the ELC falling into, that's where we're saying, okay, it might be struggling with some of today's delivery and is going to need some pretty major reimagination to go forward. The district doesn't have any core or those bottom criteria of facilities, so we need to worry about those. Those are the ones that aren't even able to house the programs at all, and oftentimes we just recommend taking them offline. You'll see an average score there of 75.8. So really, overall, there's a lot of great functionality happening across the district. I will tell you that all those scores, in our opinion, are somewhat inflated because of the condition they're in. So within this functional it relates to the HVAC systems and the roofing, and are they dry, and are they safe? Those types of things are inflating these numbers in some ways, where we did see some opportunities relative to functional assessment with flexibility, variation of class sizes, some of those types of things, that there would be some opportunities to to approve upon. So with that, so now the parts you've all been waiting for. Actually, what you've really been waiting for is the very end.
Is the what?
It's the very end. Oh, this is like at least like 3 pages. And you can read them.
Some zooming in.
Yeah. I was standing right there and I read it, so I can read it just fine. All right, so we're gonna go through the scenarios. As we go through them, there's a few common assumptions I just want to set the table. There was a lot of additional scenarios we talked about, a lot of different criteria, so to give you some of that background. I'll talk about status quo a little bit more, just how that relates to all the other comparisons and what it means, and then ultimately get to those other scenarios. So, first of all, just remind everybody, the strategic plan was interested in looking at the pre-K through 5 educational environments. Really some of the goals of that, providing capacity for up to 8 sections for each of those elementary levels, and then how that rolls into the 6 through 12. Grade levels being housed in buildings together, which was amplified even more as we considered options of splitting up grade levels equally into 2 facilities. That's something that came up as the potential options. Another piece that really came out of this is minimizing those building transitions. So how could we improve grades so they're not moving like every other year? Consider that if you moved every other year, you only had 2 grades, half the buildings move every single year. The admin team's having to learn, and they're having to learn to build. We did study, in this here, you'll see 4 almost a dozen different scenarios that we brainstormed and looked through. Some of those included a single pre-K 5. One of the pushbacks on that, just as we were discussing it, is maybe almost 1,000 elementary kids in one building. Not necessarily just on one side, but in one building. Similar feedback with the pre-K 4, those types of things. What we did come out with all these different options, scenarios, are 5 facilities to support first to 12th grade. So we really did focus on how we could work the daycare and its expansion into our district facilities. We looked at retirement of 2 to 3 facilities in the various scenarios, depending on which one. Something to note is that we did study and had some deep conversations on enhancements at the high school. However, we did not include those in the CLEO study itself. The reason being is that it's the same regardless. You can, if you will, add it on to any scenario. And we didn't want to, if you will, muddy the waters on the focus, which was the pre-K through 5. So we got some more information on that we can share at a later time. But this tonight is really focused on that pre-K through 8. 6 through 8, you'll see in a moment why we kind of group that in. All of these do treat property and buildings as neutral. So that means the sale of a district property or building, the purchase of, all is neutral. The reason being is that we don't know how much things are worth, A, and B, it almost would exponentially increase the number of scenarios that you compare. So what we did was we were simply looking at the numbers of facilities, their operational efficiencies, functionality, and first costs and life cycle of that. And the locations of these also is flexible. So that conversation, I think, is kind of a takeaway at the end. Just read forward a little bit here. That's kind of the next step, is to understand, okay, where did these happen? So status quo, this is the same as that slide that you had up there. It's a little bigger now because it's sitting in front of you, but this really just looks at doing physical needs across the district. Again, that's just under $19 million of work. Very minor improvement to that functional performance score. I think it's like 4 points, give or take. And keeps all of the 8 facilities online, if you will. No grade realignments, no renovations, no capacity improvements. So we're still operating essentially with all of our learning spaces utilized and assigned without the ability really to expand without increasing class sizes. So scenario 1, with this looks at the real kind of differentiator is a new pre-K through 2nd grade building. What this allows for is the retirement of East Side and the ELC, And also the vacating, if you will, of the Little Hearts building and that lease by moving those daycare students into Southside. West Side remains the all-ed campus. Central then would only serve third, fourth, and fifth grades, since we pulled the whole second graders out. The junior high and senior high remain as is, if you will, in their capacities. You will see, you see this, I can't read it. You'll see here that the physical needs costs go down a little bit, because there's some buildings coming offline, so we're not just putting money into the current needs. But there are some additions, renovations totaling about $50 million. So the total first cost of this option is about $64 million. That includes the building of that new building, which is about 41 of that. And then some renovation in Central, and then a little bit of renovation in South Side, really to kind of right size it feature-wise for the whole daycare. Any questions on that one?
At the high school, does it have a field house?
So we discussed things relative to field house, auditoriums, science labs, all those types of things. The cost of that campus could range anywhere from $20 million to $50 million, depending on what you would want to explore. That image does show potential for that. That was one of the things that came from those discussions.
Okay.
But again, we're not going to go super deep into that tonight, just because it's can really be applied equally across many other scenarios.
I have a question. On this diagram with the new building.
Yep.
In the lower right-hand corner.
Yep.
Is this just a general size or a location? I mean, that's an unknown.
This is an unknown location.
Okay.
We can give recommendations on site size.
Okay.
You know, for pre-K through 2, 15 acre, 20 acres would be wonderful. If you're going to house it like in scenario 2 with another elementary, you're probably taking 30 or 40 acres, probably to house the two together on that site. So, but right now, completely neutral. We found some big green spots and the community around that would be great for us. But we don't know them, so.
Okay.
All right, so going to scenario 2. So this one really parallels, I think, what we were starting the dialogue and conversations of, hey, let's go on our pre-K through 5 kids under one roof. Well, this does it just in a slightly different way, and you can see it's generic because they're literally shown as the same building. It would be similar in square footage. It would be 2 buildings, one a pre-K2, similar to the first scenario, the other a 3rd through 5th building. These could be on the same site, they could be on different sites, however that works out. This would actually allow the retirement of 4 facilities, the ELC, East Side, Little Hearts, and West Side, with that West Side Ed program actually going down to the Central campus. So the Central program no longer would serve pre-K through 12 kids, but would be serving some other services that actually allow some different alternative programs to be housed under one roof. Location made some sense. This then also allows the junior high and high school to remain, if you will, as is for the time being, with the grade levels they're serving. You will see quite a bit of increase in first costs, up to about $92 million, really because you're building 2 buildings. This is the largest amount of new construction that occurs, with about $78 million of that being the small renovations at the south side, all of those new construction. So going to scenario 3. So this one starts with, we'll put down the box just a little bit, and this is one of the starting reasons of why we're talking about pre-K through 8, not just pre-K through 5. Because this one, similar to option 1, looks at a single elementary. In this case, it's a pre-K through 1st. So instead of a pre-K through 2. Now in this case, 2nd through 4th, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, then would be a central. And it actually pushes 5th grade up into the current junior high, creating almost an intermediate program there. You can see that pre-K1 would likely be a slightly smaller building than pre-K2 that was originally assigned. Similar retirement of facilities with ELC and East Side and Little Hearts to scenario 1 as well. West Side remains the all-ed program, South Side the daycare. In order to accomplish this at the junior high school, it's not too complicated. It's an addition of some additional gym space. We have the programs in both 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th operating simultaneously within that facility. It's also a small 2-story classroom addition. We would probably see on that lower level, 5th and 6th, kind of using a part of that addition and then blending into the existing floor plan and then up above 7 and 8 housing there. Couple of small moves, actually moving the band area out of that lower level off the cafeteria up adjacent to the current band room, and then using that lower level that's currently the music room as an expansion of media center library. That was the one thing as we were talking with the admin team. If they brought another grade in, they said, oh, our cafeteria space is fine, our other programs, it was really that media center, because they're kind of two different needs. One's a media center, one still needs kind of elementary level books and checkouts, so expanding that in some capacity would be a need to bring that grade level in there. You will see cost-wise, this one starts to float down towards the similarities to that scenario 1. It's about $70 million in first costs. You're building less than scenario 2, but more than scenario 1, if you will. This one also includes kind of the determination from the district and ultimately the admin team about grant alignments and programming and things like that. I think we were just hearing it from Lakeland tonight, the way their programs, for the summer was a 5th through 8th kind of middle school programming that career ed, so just something to consider. And then lastly, this scenario kind of pushes even a little further from all that and looks at building a new 6th through 8th facility. So this again is on an unidentified location. It could potentially include fields and things like that, depending upon what, we didn't really have deep conversations about at this moment. But what that would result in is pre-K through 2nd actually being housed at Central, with 3rd through 5th at the current junior high campus. Same number of buildings kind of remaining online as many of the other scenarios, with West Side still housing Milton, South Side is the daycare. You'll notice South Side, Kayla and I were pushing, trying to find ways to fit like a pre-K 1 and pre-K 2 on that campus. It's just too tight. There's just too many other needs. We tried our hardest to kind of work through it, but when we were looking at the number of capacity we really needed to plan for, it just wasn't feasible. So that's why you'll see that one kind of relating to daycare across the board. The other buildings similarly are just small. So not necessarily the site was terrible or anything like that. It's just a matter of the amount we have to add on at that site and then be landlocked. That's where it, those kind of fell out of favor, if you will. All right, any questions on those scenarios? I can go back to them too in a little bit here, or I can go through the outcomes of the results. All right, so just so everybody knows, the Clio study really looks at, well, it takes 2 items and creates the third. Oftentimes, looking at scenarios and master plans, you would simply look at the one that costs the least and say, all right, I want to do that one. But oftentimes, that may not be actually giving you the most, if you will, bang for your buck, related to how it's improving education and efficiency through the district. So we don't just look at the first cost, we look at life cycle costs. So that's not only the cost we've shown you, but also upkeep and energy of these over the next 30 years. The other piece is it's going to craft into that, the functional performance. So again, that scoring we had originally, we updated that for these scenarios based on the improvements, based on bringing new buildings online, that type of thing, and it improves upon that. And what those 2 pieces together give us this cost benefit result, which was shown on each of the charts there, but again, here is all together. So what you will see here is that based on the results, the first cost, the operational costs, square footage, and that functional performance, that the highest scoring of those was scenario 1, which was the building of a single new elementary school. Scenario 3, which was actually the building of a single elementary and pushing 5th grade up, was the second scoring. Scenario 4, the new junior high, was the third scoring, and then the lowest of the new scenarios with scenario 2, which is building of 2 buildings. A couple of things to note here. One is that we like to see scenarios that allow us to push away from status quo. That makes it pretty clear, like, you know, it's not just like an incremental improvement, you're making improvement. All of these scenarios do that. All of these push away, there's efficiencies in that, in operations and staffing, all those kinds of things. When you get up into the scenarios, the real differentiator is really that first cost and the amount of new square footage you're bringing online all at once. So scenario 1 was building the smallest new footprint and getting you some really great environments. Scenario 3 just built a little bit more, so it kind of goes down from there. One of the things to also note in these is that scenario 2 is also pulling Central offline. That was the only one that took it out of service as far as a pre-K through 12 facility. And because of its age, or you know, it's not as old as some of the other facilities, it's also getting deemed here because we're kind of taking a facility offline before it's kind of used by date, if you will. The way we started to look at it as we got through the analysis was we were starting to kind of see scenario 2 as almost a phase 2, where you build pre-K through 2 or pre-K through 1, and then scenario 2 is the next phase, a 15-year phase, where you say, okay, now we're going to replace XYZ building for our 3 through 5. So that's where we started to kind of see that it kind of fit, if you will, within the overall. Another thing that really pushes scenario or status quo way down, if you look at that bottom line, you'll see the status quo says $18,700,000, then operating costs $108 million. That's about $20 million higher than any of the other scenarios. However, it's got the smallest square footage of all of them. So the operations of running the status quo, just keep it going, it's about $70 a square foot more than any of those other scenarios. So really, combining facilities, getting to some type of alignment, regardless of what that first build is going to be an improvement.
What's the timeline on life cycle
So
costs?
this is a 30-year model.
30-year?
Yep. So just some takeaways from all that. Regardless of a scenario, you know, the fiscal needs that are currently in place, about $19 million over these next 10 years. And that status quo, if that were the direction that the district went, you're really going to just be spending about $70 more a square foot in operations. From all of them, that new single elementary is a first phase, whether it be scenario 1 or 3, was really kind of the highest scoring. And they are utilizing Central. That functional assessment score does, if you will, ding that campus because of its location, but it's only a question or 2. It's not, you know, it's 96 questions. So that, for all intents and purposes, the buildings that you get shaped that overweigh its current location within the community. The high school work, as we started to touch on, didn't want to get too deep into tonight, can be phased in or added to any of these. So let's say you said we like scenario 1, but we want an auditorium at high school. Well, take the scenario 1 cost and you add on auditorium at high school. How that could work. Those new building locations are all flexible. So Jill, as you were mentioning, these are just kind of somewhere that's green. We're going to tear everything down. But we can even look if there's kind of some combating sites. We've got some scoring we can do for that. And give you a feel of
I
that.
guess I was just generally thinking, like, how many acres do you need to build a facility like this?
Yeah, so for one of those elementaries, yeah, I'd be like 15 acres, give or take.
Okay.
For the 2 together, 30 or 40. It really depends on how much future flexibility you want, where it's at, how much buffer you want. And really, as we're looking through all of this, there's a lot of conversations about the buildings, the sites. None of these scenarios, kind of like I was saying, scenario 2 is almost a phase 2. None of these scenarios marry you to any particular building. You know, building on the junior high, if in 25 years you decide that junior high has now reached its end of life, build on the other side of the addition you just put on, you take down the old one. Short of siting, i.e. if you build like on the central campus or if you build on the junior high campus, short of that, no other thing is tying you to the buildings. These all are going to have a 15 or 20-year lifespan, regardless, unless you decide to jump at it sooner, but realistically, probably a 15-year lifespan. So still gives you a lot of flexibility, but I think what we were saying is that primary, pre-K1, pre-K2, which is a conversation I think the board and the admin team really, we heard arguments both ways. It'd be great to have second graders with them, but it's also be nice to be able to push the fifth graders up. Either way, that'd be a great first step, getting those youngest learners together, and it'd be most cost effective for the district in the long run, so.
So, is it okay to ask questions?
Yes, absolutely, please.
So as you were looking at these scenarios and they started to develop based on your numbers and so forth, did it match up with the feedback you were receiving with all the people that you surveyed? Because sometimes you're on, with a couple of different options or projects, the numbers may all say this, but the feedback I'm getting is a different direction. Did you sense that at all?
I didn't sense any, no, we can't do that. No. I think the biggest question mark, and I don't know if it's been answered, honestly, is that grade division. Pre-K2, pre-K1, that's the one, I don't know that anybody said yes or no. There were different opinions, but I don't think it was like, if you do pre-K1, we're doomed. It was more, well, I see the value in that, because then we get this here. But I also looked at the second graders there, and so, no, short answer, no. Okay. I think there's a lot, and some of that got fleshed out early. I know I said there was about a dozen different scenarios. Those that, as we were sitting around the drawing board, going, oh, yeah, you do this, you move that there, and we brought them in, and the admin team was like, no, that can't work. So we were able to pull some of that early on, really by throwing a ton of options. I mean, we came in here, with new junior highs and stuff like that, and people are like, we're not splitting our pre-K through 5 kids, if you will, vertically. Half of the pre-K 5 in one building, half of them not doing it. So we were able to pull some of that earlier. Okay, thanks.
Buildings wise, the junior high building is a 1939 building. And 15, 16 years, it will be 100 years old. Okay. The central building, I don't know if we were exactly sure on how old that was.
78.
78, okay.
I was in.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So middle of our second grade years.
So next to that, the next building in line would probably be, don't worry about the all dead, let's think, South Side, ELC, East Side, right? Because I know the high school's the newest.
South side was built in the 50s.
Yes.
Okay.
East side, south side, and west side, they were all built at the same time. Roughly.
They're all very similar. Very, very
I think
similar
that's why they're
architecture.
side, west side, and south side. They're all built at the same time.
So my point behind this is their CLEO program works in deterioration of buildings formula along with once you hit those older stages, such as a 100-year-old building, okay? Doesn't have to be the decision of this board, okay, in 16 years, I don't know if we can set on the board or not. If you are, then you get to make a decision at that point. Or you start having a little bit of a vision now on how long is that building going to last and how long do we want to be able to hang on to that. A 100-year building, from an architectural standpoint, you start worrying about what?
Well, major systems. I mean, plumbing, those are things that you might adapt, set, not be too worried about. I mean, honestly, in our model, things like foundation, exterior walls start coming up because they have, in essence, a 100-year lifespan in a lot of ways. Those are all modeled in. So even the things right beyond that 10 years, even for your buildings that are in better shape, even those things like you've got a roof maybe that's, let's say, 12 years old. So in year 13 on the model, it's a 25-year-old roof, it's kicking that back in, so taking that into consideration. So if modeling it that way, whether you decide to keep it online for 30 years is ultimately the district's decision, but it has been considered within the model.
And that's a discussion that at some point, or a decision, in my opinion, at some point needs to be discussed and get a feel for the comfort level on how long are you interested in building. You put a lot of money in the junior high facility, but in all honesty, it needed that. And at that point, I think that was a good decision. And honestly, it has boded well in these reports because the facilities have been kept up. So you've invested in that. That doesn't mean that 20 years from now, you want to go put another $15 to $20 million into a 100-year-old building. So if you're not going to, do you start, as we've talked, potentially putting new property, start building new, so that you're not continually, and how do you balance renovation versus brand new buildings? I think that's kind of what's interesting to me about the Clio report that he's just gone through. I've gone through it multiple times already myself, and I think it's intriguing information when you start looking at it, because I think we as districts need to have a vision on where we're going. And part of that vision is, I was going to go back here, not the bumpers, we go back to it if we need to, but I wanted to just state briefly where this all started last fall, okay? With 4 sessions guided by EDLS and representatives from the following groups began the strategic planning process. We had certified staff, non-certified staff, board members, administrators, students, parents, business leaders, community members, college professors. We were here for 4 nights, for about 4 hours every night to start the whole process for this thing. It led itself into, once that was developed, then it was turned over to the district leadership team, and our administration and our cabinet, along with a building committee and some board input to get us to the point of, in my opinion, these 6 major goals. Obviously, each one has 2 to it, and then we break those down. But over and over and over again, I heard last fall, plan and centrally locate pre-K through 5 facilities. I mean, at every meeting we were at, it was like, that's the number one thing that needs to be addressed. My guess is it's been discussed for, I don't know, 20 years. We've been discussed for a long time. How long was, maybe longer than that, since Central's a mile and a half south of town. So it led us down this path of, all of a sudden, the LDD shows up here in the summer with this program to take a look at it. The LDD is not our current architect in this school district. They are an outside entity looking at this from an outside perspective, all right? I didn't go with internal people who've been doing this for a long time for us. I said, come in here and show us and do the research. And that's where we've landed back at as we take a look at this. So again, goal number 1, plan on centrally located pre-K through 5 facilities. Make all pre-K to 12 facilities state-of-the-art learning centers. These are things that are being addressed in this research, all right? So if you're gonna have a strategic plan, you probably ought to use it. So we're using it, which has brought them to this point right here. I'm not gonna go any deeper into this document right now. It does touch in some other areas with infrastructure and things of that nature, which would be correlated with exactly what they're talking about here tonight. And then, of course, the wild one is, and I'm not going to talk about it tonight because we're not to that point right now. But ultimately, if you're going to pick and you're going to look at the strategic plan and the presentation that was just given to us and try to figure out where we're going as a district, ultimately, what's it going to come down to?
We need a building.
Do we need a building, and how would you pay for it? Okay, so those things all come together in time, but I feel tonight is a great night for us to be at this point, to be able to share, here are some ideas, and here are some directions. I will also tell you that moving forward from this right now, would you mind sharing what the next steps would be in order, obviously, this community needs to make some decisions on potential options to look into if indeed this is something that we want to follow, right?
Yep.
Once we go down that road, probably with your help, following up with this part, the next steps would be, once you make some decisions, I think you limit it down to a couple options, and then we would go to the community for input. We would go to staff for input. We've involved a lot of staff for the purpose of the strategic planning. But we've not gone back to the staff with this Clio presentation. This is the first time it's come out outside of administration and the comport and the building committee. Okay? Anything else to that you would add?
No, I think the important piece, as you mentioned, is, there's an identification of, we've got 4 here. If you go talk to the community as a whole, 4 is too many. So starting to get some common understanding of some direction to that. That gives you an opportunity to speak to them about, like you started the conversation about high school. Like them saying, yes, I love this, but we really have to do X, Y, Z. We need science labs in high school. That starts to create a more completed package that's not just us spitballing, all the things that we talked about in high school as a potential, kind of helping to prioritize how that works. The other piece is, like you just said, number of acres and where and what. We've got some property in the district, we have a couple of sites that have some extra room, if you will, but there's a lot of variables on that. So I think that's one of the things. The other night we were talking was kind of common understandings, like if it's elementary, if it's primary elementary, okay, that's a starting point. It's one, line in the sand. Okay, now what's the next common understanding for the admin team, and where can we not choose? As options, and we need to get some community input, kind of push that next step.
Going back to it in case somebody wants to reference it anymore. Does anybody else want to see it back up there? Any questions off the board? Now I'll quit looking for it, but I got out of it.
This, we
Yeah.
have it in front of us.
Right.
Okay, so we have a lot to think about.
Thanks for the presentation.
Yes, very good.
If there's any questions, please don't hesitate to, write them down, send it to Mr. Johnson, we can respond and answer any of them. There's more info on the high school stuff, all that, if there's anything more, we can chat through and share. Appreciate you letting us take the time to present tonight. I'm sure that there are probably no questions. So it's like crystal clear. I'm sure it's all.
I do have a question.
Good.
On scenario 1.
Yep.
The new building, but there's also some modifications to central, still keeping it as 3 through 5. There's some modifications drawn in here. What can, just generally speaking, what would those be?
Some of the critiques from the admin, one within P&A, some improvements to the flooring in the gym, some of the physical needs is addressing those basic needs. The secondary thing beyond that was kitchen cafeteria, and the orange was a little behind, but not bad. And then extending beyond that, since we can get second grade out of there, we could possibly right size the classrooms that you have in that space. It's just a possibility. You guys are functioning well as you are, but since we are breathing a little more freely with the new addition, we have some more possibilities that are driven there.
So majority of that agreement is just making it.
Resizing classrooms. Okay, cool.
Especially since the surplus kind of operates.
Right.
We do have it on our radar and still in talks. We would like to do some major renovations to the library down there at some point as well.
I kept that out of it since that was
Already
something
been
that's
talked about.
coming up hard. Yeah.
Right. So we are continuing to look at that. It's been on the radar for a while back in here. The other piece to that, and I think everybody know that we do have, we have 6 second grades down there and 2 second grades at Southside, correct?
Yeah. It's a block.
Two at Central and
Got them flipped?
Two at Central, two that way.
Sorry. They're separated, that's the key, is what I'm after there. I think it would be very advantageous, beneficial to get it together.
Are in the other 2 classes, not able to.
Good point. Great point. Just some things like that, so we'll share more in the future, because we've got lots and lots and lots of data behind these things that we're working on.
But yeah, I think some of the Legoland parting words, the admin team's been amazing. I mean, a lot, like you said, a lot of conversations, sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get people to like, it's like, shoot down the idea, it doesn't work, this district, tell us, I don't want to bring it to the board, and then you say, So that was some great dialogue, really discussions about that, transition between grade levels, and I think any of these, kind of elementary as a first step, all set the district in a really good spot, so. And I feel confident because the admin has been in the room for those conversations, so.
Mr. Roberts, you have anything you want to add to that? You've been having involvement with us as well.
Good.
Good.
I know this is great.
Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, sir.
Next on the agenda is the tentative tax levy approval, and I will toss that to Ms. Baker.
All right, so proposed tentative tax levy for 2023, which is payable in 2024. You have the tentative levy worksheet in your packet. Looking at that, we're looking at equalized assessment values increasing from 580 million to 650 million for our area, which is an increase of 13.59%. That doesn't mean that we're raising taxes 13.59%. When you look at the tax rate though, last year's tax rate was 3.48. If this all goes through, it would increase our tax rate to 3.49. So 1 penny essentially. Other than that, it's based off of a 12% EAV increase. Any questions?
It's complicated.
Complex.
It is very complicated. And naturally speaking, the EAV goes up every year because property values always go up, and they've gone up exponentially this last year, so I'm not surprised by that at all. Okay, are there any questions, comments regarding the levy? So I'm looking for a motion and a second to adopt the 2023 tentative tax levy as presented and to set a levy hearing for Monday, November 20th at 6 p.m.
Motion.
Motion by Scott,
Second.
second by Chad, roll call.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Jane, yes, Chad,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is the maintenance grant submittal.
Every year we get the opportunity to partake in a school maintenance grant, which is a $50,000 match. We must spend $50,000 to get $50,000. So in other words, we have to have a $100,000 project. Last year we used it maybe for some flooring and things of that nature. I'd have to look for sure. Some things that we debated on this year, we were looking at possibly finishing up, changing all athletic facility lighting that has not been updated to LED lighting, which would be a savings in the future for us. And then I ran across in conversation, I got wind that you could actually purchase digital marquees with your school maintenance grant money. So I double checked with them and found out that, and what I've stated here to consider is that we potentially seek 2 marquees, move them to digital form, which is one would be the junior high and one would be in high school this year, with the idea that if this grant comes around again, which it has been for several years, look into putting a digital marquee at Central next year and the board office right out front here as people were passing as well for next year. So I just thought I would show here, and again, all we're asking for tonight, all I'm asking you as a board for is to move forward to apply for that grant. Because right now, I have to have that submitted by the end of December.
What was your anticipated conservation marquee?
Yeah, it's about 60,000, the project's 120.
for each?
So that means 40, so the 4.
No,
No, it's not 60.
120 total.
60 for the high school sign, 60 for the junior high sign, for a total of 120. And the grant has to be a minimum of 100,000.
Right.
To be
And then you're gonna
reimbursed.
put another 60 here, and another 60 in central.
A year later.
Not this
You're
year,
right.
down the road.
I was going off of that.
Oh, yeah, it's just
The less,
different options.
Well, one is for the sign and one is for the digital piece. Right?
Basically, you're right around 60,000 for
This-
sign.
This is a grant, so the 50 for this year for the 2, basically, we're gonna be over 100, and then another 50, we'll get another 50 grant next year possibly.
You can rewrite for it every year.
where is the high school sign?
The current one?
Just right, same place.
We should look at
It's
putting it
opposite side.
somewhere where, I mean, it's just not very,
We,
nobody sees it.
I agree 100%. All I'm asking you to do is approve us to look into doing it and spend this money. We haven't even talked about where it's going. This was just some samples of what it, because we've had several comments to me that people can't read them as they're driving by, and we agree. We've talked about that. So when you go by the high school property right now, the 2 that were there are gone. Okay, because they were cluttered. And I've had people comment to me about cleaning up that property. So I thought, let's get them out of the way. So we're starting that project. One of them came off the corner and could go back to the corner to the junior high side to the east. Or you could look at going to the other end out on, what is that, Rainy, or the athletic complex, and look at doing something where people are, I stop at that stoplight every day. So I have time to watch, purposely drive by our schools so that I have a little bit of a understanding of where one should go if we wanted to go that direction.
Northeast corner of where the high school line is.
Yeah.
Because that, talk about a long travel intersection.
It's my understanding that the marquee at the junior high, it was donated a long time ago. And so we would be very cautious about how we go about that. But I think it would be as simple as potentially taking the insert that's in the middle of it out and putting a digital one in and maybe leaving the rest of it. So again, the cost on that one might be cheaper. We haven't gone down that road. All I need is permission to write the grant for this. If you don't want to write it for this, I'm going to go back and get lights or flooring or windows or you can do about anything. One of my rationales behind doing it is a form of communication. I think we've tried to, as a district, get better at communication. I did just speak to, I meant to just tell you, Jasper County, I was over there for 6 years, and the year I left, right before I left, we approved and put one up, and they have one up out there now. Talked to the high school principal about it. She said, I can change that marquee from my house. She doesn't leave it. From my house. It's been the greatest thing that's happened to me because they had letters and they would send student council kids out and they would change all the letters.
Still, so, got a long history of kids going out in the cold and making them tougher, so we're taking that away from them now. Including the few in this room right now, that are down in the cold.
Sounds like you just dominated one.
So we need to take a vote on whether or not you're gonna write for this specifically.
Yeah, I have to be able to, you have to tell me what permission you need to write the grant for. I can't just write it and say we want $120,000.
On the side that
It's gotta be
license
specific.
or explore.
Right. Or if you want something else, I can explore something else. I got time. We got 2 months. This is what we've put our time into so far, but in all of my notifications too, I haven't really had another direction given to me, so if you want me to go a different direction, I'll be glad to start tomorrow morning.
I like it.
Me too.
Motion.
A second to approve the application for the ISB maintenance grant with the intent to use them for signage.
Motion.
Motion by Steve, second by Andrew, roll call.
Jill?
Yes.
Jane, yes. Chad?
Yes.
Jessica? Yes. Steve?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Next on
Before we
the,
move on to the next one, how about, would it be okay if the facility committee works with our administration on the location to place this? We'll bring that back to the next board meeting for approval.
I think location
Or if
is
somebody else
huge.
would like to be involved, I don't care.
I think there's too many digital signs in this town that people just drive right past and don't even notice because there's not a stoplight or a stop sign or.
I agree.
Strategically
placed.
Right. And we're vision blind to them because we are used to them being there. You don't stop in the middle of the road to read them.
Right.
So it's a huge expense if they're not placed properly.
It's very pricey, like everything is now. I think that then on top of that, because it's way down the road, but getting someone to be proactive in what they're actually, what information are you providing? I mean, if they're useful, people will look at it.
Right.
Mr. Roberts, could you speak on behalf of the high school on who would keep this up to date if we have a digital one?
It would be in our office, it would probably be our secretary. If Scott wants to, I can force the kids to go out in the cold and use the computer.
There you go.
But also, we haven't moved out on all of that tradition. It's, we had an electronic site for a while, and just the quality wasn't what it needed to be, and it came outdated very quickly and unusable. When we had it, it was used, I don't know, did it ever even work when you were?
It did not.
Yeah, when we had it, it was the office secretary that kind of kept things up. And so I would assume we would do the same. And really, you know, the capability is going to be quite a bit different as well. So I think that would make a difference. As to when we used it, it could be something we could pass into student council with some oversight as to being able to use it as well. Personally, I'll just add, you know, if you're talking about location, one of the things that I do notice is that when you come down Maple and Grove on that corner, there is really nothing there that identifies that building as Effingham High School on that corner. And if you really think about that, it's just that side of the building, and so it might be nice to have a sign. I'm not advocating for a spot right now, but there isn't really anything that identifies it as the high school.
And that's very similar to other communities our side, all over the state. It's just a building until you see the marquee, the digital marquee that tells you what it is across the top, not a digital, permanent across the top of the marquee, which is how I find schools that I'm going to for sporting events, is sometimes just that. And I can see what you can get lost with Effingham High School, not being identified.
Look for football, that's.
So I think the other thing that I'll do is I'll look into, I'm sure I can get a traffic count, can I, for streets, of usage, and just maybe see which side of the high school is.
Yeah, I mean, our parent pickup line is on Route 40 in the parents, you know.
Right.
So there's two different entrances during the school day that are used.
Right.
The city engineer's office says all that.
Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the Effingham Unit 40 Foundation directors. There's two new directors being nominated. I think we had one last month. This month, it's Jessie Cotnod and Katie Harper. Anybody have any questions, comments? I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve Jessie Cotnod and Katie Harper as Unit 40 Foundation directors.
Motion.
Motion by Chad.
Second.
Second by Scott. Roll call.
Jane, yes. Chad?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes. The next item on the agenda is E-rate updates. There's no actual action needed. There was information in board book. Do you want to talk just a little bit about that?
Just briefly, this is something that was approved back in, last May?
Yeah.
For us to move forward with, and really truly, Emily came to me and said, maybe we should bring this up to the board so we're at least aware of it, because E-rate takes forever to get help through, okay? And it's not really state, but it's just another subsidy that we're able to utilize at this point right now. I don't know that it'll stay around forever either, just so we keep a radar on it. But it does a great job of allowing us to get fiber and lots of accessibility resources at, I don't know, about, what's it say, they're 70% of their cost. You know, the cost for us is 30%, so 70% from USAC. So just wanted to break it up, make it work.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the approval of the addendum to the lease agreement between Tri-Bar Investments and Unit 40.
I'll just speak on that briefly. Prior to the agreement of the original lease agreement with Tri-Bar, which is who we rent and lease the daycare facility off of, we were in talks about ways for us to reduce our lease payment each month by utilizing our staff to do a lot more of the work, such as maintenance work, such as mowing, such as snow removal and things like that. So they wouldn't need to seek vendors in the public to do that work because we have staff that could do it as well. So we couldn't get all that in place prior to, so we just finally said, once we get this in place, let's talk again. So that's why we're asking for an addendum at this point right now. We basically would reduce our lease from $3,300 a month to $2,875 a month. And that's mostly to do with the fact that we will take over the mowing responsibility of that property and the snow removal of that property, which won't take us very long, especially on the snow removal part. We have equipment that already does that. And then on maintenance, we will utilize our maintenance people. But please understand, when we utilize our people, we charge the district for that work to the Child Care Fund 11 account, because taxpayer money being billed from that. So we reimburse that, make sure we keep it clean.
And we're currently paying 33% of it.
$3,300 a month, correct, 2875. So it drops, what is that, almost $500.
Okay.
425.
All right, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the addendum presented between Tri-Bar Investments and Unit 40 School District.
Motion.
Motion by Scott,
Second.
second by Andrew. Roll call.
Chad,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Jane, yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is the approval to purchase a replacement backhoe.
Had an accident this summer, where our backhoe was moving from one building to another, and was running into the back of it, basically totaled it, and insurance, finally gotten around to the insurance, giving us a whopping $17,000 for that machine. We need to replace that. We've been without it since then, of course. A brand new one would run somewhere in the ballpark of $100,000. I put that on there because we're seeking or asking if we could, we're hoping to get a used one. It would be no older than 2010 model, and hoping to keep the expense under $65,000 for that replacement. My question of running it this way is, would you prefer to just go get a new one? It's a lot more money, but spread that out and purchase it over, make payments and purchase it over an extended time, or take the risk on spending $60,000 to $65,000 on a used one. That
What year was the one that was totaled?
is old.
This is 97.
Okay, so
How often do we use it?
a lot.
Would you use it a lot?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, would it be better to rent one if we need it, but we use those often? Okay.
And if it's not available, one would need it, if it's bad.
Okay. So your recommendation is to seek a used one?
That's what we were planning to do. I just kind of want to make sure.
But a 13, 14-year-old is 65,000. 13, 14-year-old is 65,000. And yours 100,000.
See my point?
Well, no, because your point is to get a used one, and that doesn't seem like my point.
That's why I'm bringing it up. We could have just even said,
Scott,
let's go get it.
that is his point.
Right.
He just made it.
My recommendation is to say we lower the cost. However, I'm not real comfortable.
Now I see your point.
That's his point.
Trying to save money.
Why don't we just get bids on new ones and see what they can do?
Right.
Yeah, we can do that.
How urgent is this? I know we've been without one of these for a while.
We could have used it already.
We'll wait for the insurance.
I don't think it's gonna hurt us. Here's the educator. We could go get bids on new ones, have those presented at the next board meeting, and have low prices as well. We can do both at the
Do
same
a
time.
search for both.
Come back in here and say,
It'll be tough to find a good used one, honestly.
I know,
What's a life cycle?
oh, I think it.
26 years.
Because they do
They
do all
make
that.
And they just couldn't get the parts to fix ours, that's why it was totaled.
Yeah.
It was still running high.
I'll make a motion to get bids on doing it.
I agree.
The account never used.
That's fine. New and used.
So a motion by Chad to seek bids on new and used backhoe. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Steve, roll call.
Dasha,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Jane, yes, Chad.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is the approval to extend the current mowing contract. Everybody look that over, any questions? Okay, we're happy with the service that we're getting now. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the extended contract for mowing.
Motion.
Motion by Chad. Second by Jill, roll call.
Steve,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Jane, yes, Chad.
Yes.
Dasha.
Jill, may I ask, is there still Jerry Herman?
Yes,
How many years that's been? Do we have any idea? I know it's been a while.
it's been a long time. I do recall since my time, like actually getting other bids though,
Oh, really?
and no one can compete with it.
1992, 1993 school year, he started with us. Jill, Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
A couple people have sent me messages saying they're having trouble hearing you. Can you move your
You know what? I don't think you're plugged in, because there's a cord
Oh, your light's not.
right by your foot. See it? No, it's the middle.
Yeah.
It looks like a microphone cord. No.
The one you put
They
there.
were watching and they're like, I can't hear anything.
Zach.
It's another one. I could share your mine with you. Oh, wait, here we go. Here.
That's working.
Oh, then Jane can't. Just, if Jane needs to talk, we will.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Does that work? Okay.
Hopefully.
See what Thank you. All right, November 20th board meeting. Did you see in your packet where I made the recommendation that we should tour Southside? There's been a lot of changes there over the summer.
As long as Jill brings treats.
I'll bring treats. Okay, so, there's no vote needed, but can we agree to meet at Southside at 5:15 on the November 20th meeting night?
I didn't want to see it, so I think
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
So if we can have someone there to give us a tour, we're really excited to see the changes at Southside. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the ECTA memorandum of understanding. We've, just want me to
Go
go
ahead.
through, we've made the agreement to be able to hire a junior high boys basketball B team coach for the 23-24 school year, or does it start immediately?
Starts immediately.
But the memorandum is for next year?
It's 23-24. That's this
It
year.
is 23, oh my goodness. Sorry,
It's all right.
it's a long time. So I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the ECTA MOU to add a junior high boys basketball B team coach for the 23-24 school year for a stipend of $1,200. And then this will be reevaluated at the conclusion of the fiscal year 24 to determine if the need is there and to see the position for the 24-25 school year.
Do you know how many we have this year? How many students, how many basketball?
We have 28 graders, we have 28 seventh graders.
And last year it was 15, right?
Normally we keep it.
And it was 15 for a playoff roster. I think that's where we kept it at. And this year we're not doing that. That's why we need the additional coach.
Correct, there are no cuts this year.
So no
Girls
cuts.
basketball didn't cut because the numbers are low. Boys basketball is not cutting because we don't want people cutting.
And we're adding a B team at the junior high, or for boys basketball.
Team for eighth grade and second grade, and that will be, hope and pray that we have that in place within the next week or so. They will start practicing very soon, because we are hiring a B team coach tonight, along with the fifth and sixth grade that we posted. That will all be hired tonight.
This is just one for the eighth grade, because junior is not like this. Basically, it's not one team, it's a seventh and eighth grade team, but we're just adding one.
This is one. Those kids will practice together.
Is there a schedule for B team seventh, separate from A?
That's what I just said. I'm in the works of having that hopefully in the next week. At this point right now, the B team has already practiced with Mr. Cornell. He's stayed over, actually, he might be practicing right now with the B team group. He's really stepped up and helped bridge this gap. I was in the help, but we had a board meeting tonight, so, but I thought we better be here and so the B team boys.
And he's still our 18 coach for
Seventh grade, 18. Yep. So Rod, Mr. Wheatop is the eighth grade, A team. Mr. Cornell's the seventh grade, 18. And we'll hire tonight on your personnel list, someone to do the other students, which my guess is it's gonna be somewhere between 5 to 8 eighth graders. And then it's probably gonna be 12, 15, 16, seventh graders, which again, I think is fully handleable by one person. Because we're not putting a 20-game schedule together. We're gonna get hopefully 10 or 12 games, maybe 15 games for each of those.
Okay. So back to the motion. I had a motion from Andrew and a second from Scott. Roll call.
Scott,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Jane, yes, Chad,
Yes.
Desha,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Okay. At this time, I think we're ready to adjourn to closed session. Before we do so, do you guys need signatures?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Roberts, you're not covering.
You can start. Got my class, thanks for coming.
So I'm looking for a motion and a second to adjourn to closed session.
Motion.
Motion by Scott,
Second.
second by Chad. Roll call.
Scott,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Jane, yes, Chad,
Yes.
Desha,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Thanks for coming, man, for those.
Sure, thanks.
Motion.